A big win against the Rangers moves the Lightning within 2 points to first place, 1 day away from playing the first place Toronto Maple Leafs. Here's why Lightning fans are going to have to root for their rival Florida Panthers tonight in order to get a better shot at first place.
You're Locked On Lightning, your daily podcast on the Tampa Bay Lightning, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I'm Josh Sperber. I want to thank you all for making Locked On Lightning your first listen every day. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And if your team is the Tampa Bay Lightning, then this is the show for you. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off of your first year. And the Tampa Bay Lightning got far from their first win against the New York Rangers this season. One more date between the two teams, and there has been a similarity in each of the two games this season between the Lightning and Rangers. Both games, the Lightning won by 4 goals. Both games, the Rangers outshot the Lightning by a significant margin. Back in December at Amalie Arena, the Lightning had 25 shots to the Rangers' 44. And Andrei Vasilevskiy was in the net for the Bolts. 42 saves, a lot of them spectacular. A 19-shot difference. Rangers advantage, Lightning with a 4-goal win. Then, yesterday, Lightning win 5-1 by 4 goals, shoot 16 fewer shots than the New York Rangers, 39-23, 38 saves for Andrei Vasilevskiy. What a year he has had, and he has just gotten better and better as the season has gone on for Tampa Bay. He truly has, and it's shown not just in his play, but in the Lightning record. I mean, you look at these Lightning runs that they're having, the win streak is coming at a big time in the season. You go all the way back to the Four Nations, that 7-game win streak. Vasilevskiy's in net for most of those games. That's when he started playing more of his back-to-backs, and the more he's in the net, the more he dominates. And that was on display in New York on Monday night. Absolutely was. Brayden Point reaching his 3rd consecutive 40-goal season, his 4th 40-goal season as a member of the Lightning, 2nd most in franchise history. He is the most 3-point games in Lightning history. And now Brayden Point is tied for the most power play goals in the NHL so far this season. Both his goals came on the power play. And Brayden Point continues to be a standout player for the Lightning. He was the guy at the beginning of the season that I tabbed as a guy who needed to have a year like this. I mean, everyone on the Lightning needed to step up, and it seems, especially on the offensive side, it absolutely does. Or they absolutely have. Yanni Gourde getting the game-winning goal, his 2nd of the season, his 1st of the season with the Lightning. 11 points in 16 games with the Bolts, his 7th point of the year. And the Lightning have been getting their offense from just about everybody. Jake Guentzel with his 6th 3-assist game. First time he's done it as a Bolt. 10 points over his last 7 games. And he is getting close to his career high in points as well. 77 this season for Guentzel. He continues to be, I think, undoubtedly just the best free agent acquisition in the entire NHL offseason. Guentzel's career high in points came in 2021 and 22 with the Pittsburgh Penguins, 84. 2 years before he got traded. Now Guentzel is 7 points in the same amount of games from tying his career high in just his first season with the Lightning. And I mean, it's even for a star player like that, getting moved that many times in a calendar year, you drafted by the Penguins, win a Stanley Cup with them, give them many good years, then get traded during the deadline, and then get traded again by that team a couple months after you were a big help in the postseason, And just seeing how seamlessly Gensel has fit in with the Tampa Bay Lightning and just how well he works on that first line has been a big breath of fresh air. You really like to see a talented player, especially if they get moved around a lot, really settle in with one team, and especially with the Tampa Bay Lightning, who also had maybe their best power play performance of the entire season. The Rangers are a team that tends to get in the penalty box a bit more than average, and the Lightning took advantage of that. They were on 4 power plays. They scored 3 times. The Rangers' only goal was a power play marker, and the Lightning had 3 power play goals, 1 empty net, with, just dominance on the power play. And, something that I've noticed, especially in this game, was just the passing. That was something that I feel like during the season, we were talking about the Lightning overpassing a little bit, making some careless passes in the neutral zone. Those careless passes leading to giveaways in tough parts of the ice. You're not really seeing that anymore. Any, earlier season blues, whatever it was that the Lightning were having, is gone now. The Bolts have just been that strong. And with tonight, I think what really ignited their offense was just the passing. It was just the passing ability. You've got a guy like Nikita Kucherov back on top, tied with Nathan MacKinnon for the points lead, as those two are fighting for the Art Ross Trophy. What Kucherov is able to do offensively with a puck, and just the way he's able to direct traffic for the Lightning, I think, is just unmatched. We've talked about him, I think, really deserving the Hart Trophy, him definitely having a chance at the Art Ross. There's a real chance that Kucherov could win both of them this year. I haven't exactly been silent about my opinion for Nikita Kucherov as the Hart Trophy winner. I genuinely think that is, the right thing that should happen in the NHL. I really believe that. I think that it just makes sense. He's been the engine for a high-powered offense, one of the best, if not the best, in the entire league. And Kucherov is still over 30 points ahead of anyone else on the roster. And yeah, you look down the Avalanche roster and you'll see something similar for Nathan MacKinnon. But the success the Lightning have had when so many have expected a lot less is in large part due to Nikita Kucherov. You have to give Vasilevskiy credit for being one of the best goalies in the league this season. The defenders, guys like McDonough, Chernak, Hedman, go down the list. They certainly deserve a lot of credit for the way that the Lightning defense has improved over the course of the season, because that hasn't just been Vasilevskiy in net. A goalie, I don't want to say a goalie is only as good as his defense, but you need guys in front of you to help minimize the easy shots, to help, just stop some of the traffic in front of the goalie and make your goalie's job easier. Vasilevskiy has said that he's one of the guys that likes to deal with more shots just to feel kind of ready, but you still need to have a defensive unit out in front clogging up traffic and stopping, service in towards the net. And the Lightning defense at the beginning of the year, I don't want to say they weren't doing that, but it's something that you look over the last couple months and you look over the first month or two of the season, and you just see how different the Lightning defenses looked. They just look so much sharper. Their rotations are better. They're not making as many mistakes. And it's been great. You look at just about every area where I've talked about on the show the Lightning needed to improve. The defense has gotten significantly better. The forward depth was massively boosted by the Bjorkstrand and Gord deal. They're mixing things up on their lines. They're giving players different looks and, kind of confusing up the way that the other team views them. And then, of course, the passing has gotten better. The shots are starting to fall. Everything just seems to be clicking for the right time or at the right time for the Tampa Bay Lightning, and they have never been in a better position to win the Atlantic Division. And that is what we're going to talk about next, because for one night and one night only, Lightning fans might have to become Panthers fans as Florida takes on the first place Toronto Maple Leafs. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, investments, and spending in one place so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. When I started using Monarch, I realized just how much I was spending on food delivery. Now I budget smarter, save more, and cook more. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off of your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year. The next segment title probably looks strange, and I get that. I know to most Lightning fans, rooting for the Panthers, or even the word Panthers, especially when mixed with the state of Florida, is not the nicest word. But for one time, I think Florida needs to unite as a hockey state. And for the good of the Tampa Bay Lightning's playoff position, root for the Florida Panthers against the Toronto Maple Leafs. The Maple Leafs are the first place team in the Atlantic Division. They have played 76 games to the Lightning's 77. So the Maple Leafs with a game in hand on Tampa Bay. Florida leads the season series against Toronto. They are currently behind the Tampa Bay Lightning in the Atlantic Division. Looking at the standings, the Lightning have played the same number of games as the Panthers. They play Florida once more on the 15th of April, and they are currently 4 points ahead of the Panthers with one more win than the other team from Florida. So some of you might be thinking, why would we want the Panthers to win right now? They're the closest team to the Tampa Bay Lightning in the divisional race. Well, we're going to take a look at the schedules first, just kind of compare the next 5 games for each team. The Maple Leafs have 6 games left. They play tonight against the Panthers and a back-to-back against the Tampa Bay Lightning, and that is the start to it right there. Each of them are playing some of the same teams. Each play the Red Wings and the Hurricanes. Each have a couple games at home, and each play, the Red Wings and the Sabres, not the Hurricanes. So they're playing some divisional foes. The Panthers, another common opponent, but this is really one of the last times that the Lightning will get to make up a game against the Maple Leafs. The Lightning play on Friday before the Maple Leafs play on Saturday with a back-to-back on Sunday as well. The Lightning are done with back-to-backs. The Maple Leafs have 2 more, and the first one being their most important 2 days of the season. I mean, this is make or break for Toronto in terms of winning the division, with games against the Panthers and then the Lightning coming up both on the road for the Maple Leafs, and that can't be easy. So, I mean, I know it sounds strange to think of wanting the Panthers to win, but a Panthers loss proves difficult for the Lightning to get back in the race because the Maple Leafs have already won the season series on Tampa. They've taken 3 of 4 games this season against the Tampa Bay Lightning. Have won the last 4 straight games, but a loss on the front end of a back-to-back puts the Lightning in position to get even on points with the Toronto Maple Leafs if they beat Toronto at Amalie Arena on Wednesday. And obviously that is, priority number one for the Lightning. With a loss in that game, the Lightning can pretty much kiss first place goodbye if they can't beat the Toronto Maple Leafs, especially if the Maple Leafs can hold off the Panthers for their fifth straight win tonight in Sunrise. So first, the Panthers just getting that win is just to make the Lightning really able to catch Toronto. I mean, you look at the rest of those games, the Panthers are certainly going to be tough. The other ones are winnable. The Sabres have played the Lightning really well this season, so have the Red Wings, but the Lightning have beaten both of them recently, especially when it comes to game on the line. The shootout loss against Buffalo on Saturday was definitely a tough one. But the Lightning, the last win the Lightning had against Buffalo, they did not play their best hockey and came out of that game well on top. They can't afford to do that anymore. The Lightning are at the point of the season where you got to play your best hockey or you're going to lose and you're going to drop some points and maybe even some seeding positions in the postseason. And the Lightning do not want to do that. You want to get as high up in the standings as possible, obviously. So right now, the Lightning currently standing at fourth in the Eastern Conference, and they can move up. They can move up if they beat the Maple Leafs on Wednesday, but they won't. I'm telling you, the win, if Toronto can beat the Panthers, it could be over for the Lightning's first place hopes. And this is a really difficult Eastern Conference. Lower seeds, higher seeds. Right now, the Lightning could be playing, the Ottawa Senators in the first round. And Ottawa is a team that played the Lightning very tough over the last couple of games. And the Senators are a team on the rise right now. They're one of the hottest teams in the NHL right now who have really used a strong second half to pave their way to the postseason. And right now, they're a potential first-round matchup for the Lightning. So are the Panthers. I don't know who I'd rather play in the first round, to be honest. But the Leafs right now are in second. Between the Panthers, Senators, and Devils, the Devils are a no-brainer. And we talked about this yesterday, about some of the more ideal playoff matchups. Lightning have been able to score in bunches against New Jersey. And that would be a great first-round matchup, but you just got to get some of these wins. Of course, the Lightning have to beat the Maple Leafs, but it's got to start with the Panthers, just moving Toronto down, giving the Lightning a bit more control over their playoff destiny because they don't have the season series with the Maple Leafs. They don't have the tie breaks with Toronto. They could against Florida. They could make that official with a win and even up the series on the 15th, but it also could get to the point that the division race is over by then. And back-to-back wins for the Maple Leafs could very well clinch them the division, especially if one of those games against the Lightning would put them up 6 points with 4 games to play. So the Panthers winning would help the Lightning. Obviously, the Panthers winning would help themselves too, but it might help the Lightning more than it helps the Panthers because Florida is still on the outside looking in. They're 4 points behind the Lightning. Again, they need that victory to put themselves in the division race again. They're 6 points behind the Maple Leafs right now. But, the Lightning can nullify any progress the Panthers make against the Maple Leafs if they beat Florida next week. And that's going to be at Amalie Arena, the last home game of the season. I expect it to be a completely roaring atmosphere inside the arena. I'm a lot less worried about that than I am about the Panthers and Maple Leafs game tonight. That is one that could really set the tone for these next couple of games and how the Atlantic finishes out. But I know that I will be gritting my teeth and hoping that the Panthers can beat the Maple Leafs and give the Lightning a chance at maybe even controlling their own destiny down the home stretch of the season, because that is still very much in the cards. You just have to get a couple of wins from some Florida hockey teams against one of the original 6 hockey teams. No pressure. But There is some pressure on some Lightning players, particularly Andrei Vasilevskiy, who has been one of the best goaltenders in the NHL all season long. Vasilevskiy has maybe not been listed as the Vezina candidate. I feel like the favorite for that has been Connor Hellebuyck of the Winnipeg Jets, but I think that's wrong. A great performance against the Rangers last night in a game with a lot of playoff implications was one of the many reasons why I think Andrei Vasilevskiy is the clear Vezina Trophy winner. You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other sites. Indeed's sponsored jobs put your post at the top of the page and help you reach the right candidates faster. I've been in that spot where you need the right hire like yesterday. The pressure's on, and every day without the right person is a setback. That's exactly when Indeed sponsored jobs come in handy. They make sure your post is seen by the right candidates right now. Now you can speed up your hiring process with a $75 sponsored job credit. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply, but if you're hiring, Indeed is all you need. So this is not a new topic. Andrei Vasilevskiy for Vezina again. But it just seems like every big game, it means that much more, and it just becomes that much more obvious. Connor Hellebuyck does lead all goaltenders in a number of categories: save percentage, goals allowed average, shutouts. He has only one more than Andrei Vasilevskiy in that character. Also has tied with Vasilevskiy for the most games played and has more wins than anyone else in the league. In a lot of categories, in terms of goaltenders this season, Vasilevskiy is second in wins with 37, tied for first in games played. He is second in shots faced, but first in saves. In save percentage, second. Goals allowed average down to third. Time on ice, though, Vasilevskiy leads, and he's second in shutouts with 7, tied for third with 2 assists on the year as well, which might not be a determining factor in terms of Vezina winners or who the best goalie in the league might be, but it's a nice little boost to know that even on the offensive side, when the leading goaltender in the league has just 3 assists, that Vasilevskiy is still elite in every single stat category when it comes to goaltenders. But looking at the defenses, that has been, I feel like for the Lightning, their biggest weakness this season. And I'm not sure the same can be said about the Winnipeg Jets. I mean, the Jets have maybe been the best all-around team in the NHL for the entire season. There have been, days at a time, mostly, where we have seen the Jets not in sole possession of first place in the league, in the division, on points, whatever it is. The Lightning have been dominant. They've been out in front of just about everyone all season long. Now, the Lightning have had some rough patches. There were definitely some subpar games for the high standard that I feel like everyone who cheers for the Lightning holds Andrei Vasilevskiy to. Some of the games at the beginning of the season weren't his best. I mean, no goalie is going to be at 100%, playing at the absolute top of their game at every moment in the season. And that's been the case for Vasilevskiy, for Hellebuyck, definitely for every single goalie this year. But I think the way the Lightning started things out defensively, I mean, that was such a weakness at the beginning of the year. And it, really rode some hills and valleys over the course of the season. Like, there were points where the defense was getting a lot better, but then the next game they would give up 4 or 5 goals. I mean, you look at even as close as the beginning of March, the Lightning coming off a huge win streak for almost the entirety of February, and then they dropped a couple games that many feel like they should have won. Defensive miscues, Not the best games by goalies, goals just not going in on the offensive side of the puck. But even in some of the games where you might have felt Vassy was off, he was still keeping the Lightning in games. That's something that no matter how well he's playing, Vasilevskiy is always doing. He is always just keeping the lights in the game, the Lightning in the game with his presence in between the net. I mean, his reaction time is so quick, and especially in these last few weeks, it really seems like he's playing up to the moment. The Lightning, too. I mean, you look at the whole team, and you can tell that they've raised their level of play because, frankly, they know what the stakes are. They know what they want to do, and they know what they have to do to get there because it's something the Lightning have done year in and year out. Franchise record, 8 straight seasons in the postseason. They have not enjoyed a run of regular season like this and regular season success like this in their franchise history. The Lightning are at uncharted territory in terms of the highest levels of their team as the dynasty that it is almost turning into here. I mean, a couple more Stanley Cups in quick succession, and you've got one of the biggest dynasties of the last 2 decades in the Tampa Bay Lightning. And Andrei Vasilevskiy is a huge part of that. He is one of the best goalies that I have ever seen, and he has certainly been one of the best goalies of the last couple of decades where he has been an NHL player. And there are a lot of games where, because of his play, the Lightning were in games that they shouldn't have been. Even in games that they lost, you know, they'd go down big early, and then Vasilevskiy would turn around, make a couple of really nice saves, and the Lightning would get back in the game, whether they win or lose, sometimes depending on the lead that they had. But, you know, Vasilevskiy is always ready to turn his game into another gear when the Lightning need it. And it showed true in the Rangers game. I mean, right now, it's pretty much win or nothing at this point in the season, not just for the Lightning. I mean, for any team fighting for a playoff spot, it's win or nothing. The losses mean a lot more, and well, the wins even depend on some other people's losses. But this is a point where the games just mean more, and a guy like Andrei Vasilevskiy steps up in those big moments in a louder way than I think any other goalie in the NHL. And, you know, the stats definitely favor Hellebuyck overall. I think I can concede that. It's easy enough to see that he has had a spectacular season. And I don't want to say that, you know, he doesn't deserve a Vezina trophy, because he absolutely does. But I think that Vasilevskiy and the Lightning were not expected to have this kind of success this season. The Winnipeg Jets might not have been expected to lead the NHL, and they look likely to finish with the league's best record by the end of the season. But I think a lot more people saw the Jets coming to the playoffs in first place than they saw the Lightning in the playoffs. And, you know, I talked about at the beginning of the season, a lot of offensive players needed to step up. I didn't mention Vasilevskiy as a guy who really needed to step up, partly because, you know, I think his game speaks for itself, but also because I think that's just implied. You know, you want to have your goalie in top form, and for the whole season, maybe not. But for definitely the last half of the season, at least since the clock has turned 2025, Andrei Vasilevskiy has looked incredible and as good as ever. In my opinion, he's the best goaltender on the planet right now. I don't think there's anyone I'd rather have in between the pipes for a postseason run like the one the Lightning are about to embark on. And I think what he has done for the Bolts this season, there have been a lot of games where the Bolts have been outshot by wide margins. We talked about those 2 against the Rangers where they gave up 16 or 19 shots more than they shot themselves. And those certainly were not the only 2 games like that this season for Andrei Vasilevskiy. There have been plenty of times where the Lightning have been outshot by a lot and won. And honestly, sometimes it seems like the games they're outshot, they shoot better. And that's just the momentum that Vasilevskiy can provide, and just the elite level of play in between the pipes that I think make him a no-brainer for the Vezina trophy. I mean, you can look at the 2 other, you know, some of the other guys in the season. You look at Hellebuyck leading in most goalie stats. You look at maybe Jake Ettinger, who is the only other goaltender with a goals allowed average better than Vasilevskiy. But I mean, for a guy who has just spent so much time on the defensive like Vasilevskiy has, he has had an incredible season. And I think that it should be immortalized with an award that Andrei Vasilevskiy is the Vezina Trophy winner, the best goalie in the National Hockey League. And that is where we're going to leave off tonight. I'm Josh Sperber, thanking all of you for making Locked On Lightning your first listen every day. Now, for your second listen, make sure to check out the all-new Locked On NHL Game Night. Every game, every night, until a Stanley Cup champion is crowned. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find NHL Game Night on Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And wherever you listened to this podcast, please give us a like, follow, subscribe. We really do appreciate your support, as the show is for you guys, the fans. So thank you all for tuning in to another episode of Locked On Lightning. I'm Josh Sperber. We'll talk tomorrow. Until then, have a great day and go Bolts.